want to get started with this story about the Central Park 5. So let me go ahead and pull this up here. Now, I want to remind you, just in case you're not aware, the Central Park 5, these were 5 gentlemen. They were accused of assaulting a woman in Central Park. Now, if you remember correctly, Donald Trump actually, his rhetoric around that particular issue, I would say actually pushed the issue more against those 5 men. And they almost had their lives basically stolen from them, if you're not aware about that. But luckily, they were exonerated and that did not happen. But now, one of the members from the Central Park 5 actually decided to run for office. Let's go ahead and start with that first. And then I'm going to tell you where that stands today. I think this is a really important story that people need to hear. Let me go ahead and share that. Let me come back. Hold on. I just want to make sure the sound is checked because it didn't ask me. Okay, here we go. All right, let's go ahead and start off with this story where one of the members from the Central Park 5 actually decided to run for office. Let's get into that.
Reviled is running for office in Harlem. Karma, he says. And you write in part, quote, Yusef Salaam, one of 5 Black and Latino teenagers wrongfully convicted and part of a 1989 rape in Central Park, is finally where he seems to belong, on the campaign trail. This is the man whose arrest prompted Donald Trump to publicly call for the death penalty in 1989 when Mr. Salaam was just 15.
And we need to remember, too, they were innocent. And Donald Trump was calling for the death penalty against them, which is ridiculous. Could you imagine if that would have happened? Right? So this is an example of someone who was not treated fairly by the system, who then in turn has decided to run for office, hopefully in an effort to change the system. That's what we're hoping here. I'm going to tell you my thoughts about this after we finish the clip, because I have a feeling this is not going to be what you think it is.
And charged with 4 other teenagers with a horrific crime that they did not commit. Mr. Trump took out full-page ads in 4 New York newspapers, including the New York Times, calling for the restoration of the state death penalty over the case in 2002. The young men were exonerated after serving years in prison. Mr. Trump has refused to apologize. Now that notoriety has provided Mr. Salaam, 49, with a platform on which to run for office, and in a twist of fate straight out of the tabloids, it's Mr. Trump, who has now been indicted on criminal charges while Mr. Salaam runs for office. It was karma, he said, of Mr. Trump's legal situation while sitting inside the Sugar Hill Cafe in Harlem. I hope he's able to do time, he said, with a hint of mischief in his eyes. When Mr. Trump was indicted recently, Mr. Salaam expressed a kind of trust in the justice system that few might expect. I do not resort to hatred, bias, or racism, as you once did, Mr. Salaam wrote in a message to the former president. I am putting my faith in the judicial system to seek out the truth. Mr. Salaam is still waiting for justice, and so is the country. And Mara, let's talk more about this, but also point out that Donald Trump is also accused of rape. Just to add a little.
It runs so deep. You know, it's an extraordinary story. It's an extraordinary tabloid story, New York story, now an American story. But I was really moved watching Mr. Salaam on the campaign trail. There's a magic to watching him. It's clearly something that you feel like he's really where he's meant to be. He's kind of born to do it. Watching him retail politicking, he loves people. There's a sadness about this because, of course, so much. I mean, his childhood was taken from him wrongfully. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to spend some time with him over the past few days is that there is a tendency, I think, to trivialize some of Donald Trump's conduct, whether they be crimes he was accused of here in New York or elsewhere, or simply harm that he has done to others over the years. This goes back a long way. And I think when you look at the case of someone like Yusef Salaam and the other teenagers who were wrongfully convicted, and Donald Trump's role in that, which really was to nationalize this case and turn them into pariahs, these children. You have to kind of remember everybody deserves an equal shot in the justice system, no matter what you're accused of. And Donald Trump was part of a campaign to rob these children of that.
That's them right there, as you can see, right? So the names are Yusef, Kevin, Antron, Corey, and Raymond.
And I think just to kind of come full circle and just remember that actually Donald Trump's conduct is serious and that he should be treated just like any other defendant would. And I think that's what I heard from Harlemites, from voters on the street. They said to me, you know, we don't want to throw the book at him any more than anyone would throw the book at us.
Yeah. And Rev, you know, to her.
You know what's interesting about this when they're talking about the justice system and being fair or should be fair? Does that also apply to Hillary Clinton? Does that apply to Bill Clinton? No, it doesn't apply to them. I'll answer that question for you.
Point about, we were just talking earlier about Stormy Daniels, like, and again, Republicans glossing over that and going straight to, they're trivializing a lot of different things that are very important. And again, it's the fire hose of falsehoods as well as trivializing indecent behavior that is part of sort of the Trump legacy on this country.
And really trivializing bigoted behavior.
Yes.
One of the things that I would note, because Nash Action Network was one of the few groups, along with other few groups that stood up for these boys. We were castigated. And Donald Trump bought these 4 ads. You must remember that Donald Trump never took a position on a case in New York. We had Howard Beach erase case, we had Besser, never opened his mouth. This was the first time he took a position on a case. So it was really biased. It was really something that really was making popular hang these guys. And it was done before they even had a trial. And the irony of Yusef and Corey Weiss, who's a member of NAM, to watch him go in the same building they had to go in to be arraigned, and have the graciousness and to take the high road. I was so proud of them and glad we stood up for them, but proud of them. They didn't give him the bitterness, and you can talk to this, that they didn't give him the bitterness or the rancor that he gave them, and he had attacked them, and they wouldn't attack him.
Their dignity shows just how small Donald Trump really is.
Now, I want you to pretend the roles were reversed, right? Or the people were different, right? Obviously, what Donald Trump did was wrong. He should have just allowed them to have their day in court. But let's pretend it's not Donald Trump. Let's pretend it was Bill Clinton who made that statement. Let's pretend it was Joe Biden who made that statement. Does MSNBC still have the same discussion? I think not. So I want to go on because that race has now been updated. And I think you'll be interested to hear this in reference to this gentleman, because now he's basically been confirmed to have won that race. Now, this is huge. And I want to take you to another clip here. Someone who basically was able to win in the end,
34 years later, here I am doing something with this platform that they gave me. 13 years after we were accused, the truth came out.
That was political candidate Yusef Salaam appearing on this show back in April. Now Salaam's platform is his notoriety. He and 4 other Black and Latino teenagers were wrongfully arrested and incarcerated for the rape and assault of a woman in Central Park in 1989. Back then, Donald Trump took out full-page newspaper ads calling for the death penalty for the teens, a public campaign that thrust them into the national spotlight. But in 2002, the teens who had been known as the Central Park Five got a new nickname, the Exonerated Five, after DNA evidence linked someone else to the crime. Salaam has taken the trauma from that experience and become a motivational speaker and author. And last night, he took a commanding lead in a New York City Council primary with nearly 51% of the vote. Now, a winner has not been declared, but it is looking very likely that Yusef Salaam will win. And because the seat is heavily Democratic, he is then likely to win the seat in November's election. Here is what he had to say last night.
Yeah, they're basically already calling it for him, just FYI.
Every single thing that happens to you happens for you. Right. Having to be kidnapped from my home as a 15-year-old child, to be lodged in the belly of the beast. I was gifted to turn that experience into the womb of America. I was gifted because I was able to see it for what it really was.
Now, one thing I want to add here. I don't know why, but I get this feeling. I'm getting these vibes, and I could be wrong, but I'm getting this feeling that he is going to be another establishment Democrat. Just vibes that I'm getting. Even after everything that he went through, my gut tells me that he is not going to be this radical change politician. My gut tells me this. And that would be a shame, considering what happened. Is he going to champion the police? Is he going to promote defunding the police, considering what he went through? Is he going to promote changing the justice system? Remember, this is New York City. We all know how bad the NYPD is in New York City. Is he going to push back against them, considering what he went through? I have a feeling that is not going to happen. Guys, I have seen this so many times where people who have been hurt, who've been abused by the system, choose to respond by later on being a part of that system so that they can help people who were like them, help people who went through what they went through, right? But they don't end up doing that. They end up just becoming a part of the system. And that is the feeling that I am getting with this particular situation. Let's think about it, guys. They are already, if you look, especially look on Twitter, they're already saying, yeah, he's basically won. Doesn't mean that he was not a good candidate. But I've explained to you multiple times before, as a Democrat, he's running through the Democratic Party, they pretty much pick the people they want. So the same city that had pretty much chosen Eric Adams, who's pro-cop, I'm supposed to believe that they didn't get behind this guy? And if they got behind this guy, that should tell you something. That right there lets you know he's not really trying to break up or the establishment in any way, shape, or form. These are the people that they pick. It reminds me of similar stories where people have spent time in prison, and then when they are released from prison, they decide to go to law school. They decide to become a lawyer because they believe that if they're a part of it, they'll be able to right the wrongs that were done to them. But a lot of times that does not happen because the system in place doesn't allow you to do so. So think about this for a second. Think about this. Thank you for the super chat, Hobbs. The Central Park Five were railroaded into jail by a Democratic Party DA. Trump was also a New York Democrat at that time. MSNBC doesn't even mention that in that clip that you saw. Let's go on.
A system that was trying to make me believe that I was my ancestors' wildest nightmare. But I am my ancestors' wildest dream.
It just feels, I don't know, man. I got this feeling. We're going to go back to the beginning because there's something I want to show you here as well. I want to comment on.
Doing something with this platform that they gave me. 13 years after we were accused, the truth came out.
That was political candidate Yusef Salaam appearing on this show back in April. Now Salaam's platform is his notoriety. He and 4 other Black and Latino teenagers were wrongfully arrested and incarcerated for the rape and assault of a woman in Central Park in 1989. Back then, Donald Trump took out full-page newspaper ads calling for the death penalty for the teens, a public campaign that thrust them into the national spotlight. But in 2002, the teens who had been known as the Central Park Five got a new nickname, the Exonerated Five, after DNA evidence linked someone else to the crime.
I just want to pause here for this piece right here. Now, I find it hard to believe that all that time that went by, you lost a good chunk of your life. You have to feel some kind of way. So the whole narrative that Al Sharpton gave, and they were saying that, well, they're not being that way towards Trump. They're not bitter. They're not resentful. I find that hard to believe. It just seems too good to be true. I said the same thing with that situation, Making the Murderer. I don't know if you guys saw that documentary where that guy spent 18 years in jail and then come to find out, they were like, oh, looks like he was innocent after all. And then he was giving press conferences basically saying like, I'm glad to be home with the family. I don't harbor any resentment. I find that hard to believe. I'm sorry, but maybe it's just me. But something with this is off to me. It just feels off a little bit. You got to feel some type of way. Let's go on a little bit here.
Salaam has taken the trauma from that experience and become a motivational speaker and author. And last night, he took a commanding lead in a New York City Council primary with nearly 51% of the vote. Now, a winner has not been declared, but it is looking very likely that Yusef Salaam will win. And because the seat is heavily Democratic, he is then likely to win the seat in November's election.
You have to remember, MSNBC, they've gotten behind this. They're promoting him. They don't come out and promote like these progressive candidates. They don't. This is why I'm telling you, I have a feeling this guy is going to be establishment to the T. Think about that for a second. How quickly they got behind him, and not just because of what he went through, but what are his policies? That is going to be the true tell. Mark my words. If he don't have anything outlining the police system or the justice system, what that tell you guys? Cobra says, remember when police beat Rodney King, then got King to defend them? They do this every decade. Exactly. Because if it were me, I would definitely not be defending Donald Trump. I would not be defending the police system or the justice system. I would be livid.
Election. Here is what he had to say last night.
Every single thing that happens to you happens for you. Right. Having to be kidnapped from my home as a 15-year-old child. To be lodged in the belly of the beast.
The preacher rhetoric. Where have we seen that before? Right? That's another thing you need to pay attention to. Lodged in the belly of the beast. The preacher rhetoric. Those kind of candidates, you got to be careful with that. They'll talk that way. But what we've seen when they win, they don't govern that way. Pay close attention to it.
I was gifted to turn that experience into the womb of America.
No. See this part right here. He was gifted to turn that experience. Being wrongfully accused and serving time is not a gift. That don't seem weird to you guys? Why would you refer to that as a gift? These are the type of things I want people to pay attention to. That's not a gift. Why isn't he saying that he was wronged?
I was gifted because I was able to see it for what it really was. A system that was trying to make me believe that I was my ancestors' wildest nightmare.
That does not make any sense. That does not make any sense, guys.
But I am my ancestors' wildest dream.
You see that? CJ says, sounds like a house Negro to me. I'm telling you, I don't buy this, man. I don't buy it. It feels a little sus to me. And that's why I can't. Mainstream media already got behind him. That right there should be a red flag to you. So just be wary of that.